Hello, I'm Dr. Levon Hayrapetyan, a business professor at Houston Baptist University. In this short video, I will demonstrate an interactive tool which I created to show the essence of K-means clustering. So first of all, let me just remind you what's the essence or the meaning of the clustering. When we say cluster analysis, what we are doing in cluster analysis is we are trying to divide into the set of data, into groups called clusters in such a way that observations within the same cluster are similar, whereas other observations from different clusters are dissimilar. So we already discussed and studied hierarchical clustering method. Now we will learn another method of clustering called K-means clustering. So it is the essence of the K-means clustering. If we know how many clusters do you want to have in advance, then this is the way algorithm works. First, it randomly assigns each observation to one of those K clusters. Let me just give an example of 10. Let's say I want to have 10 clusters. Then the first step is that all observations in the data set will be assigned to 10 random clusters. Then second step is that after all those assignment is done, then the resulting centroids of those resulting clusters will be calculated. And we already learned before how to calculate the centroids. And then when the centroids are calculated, then the next step is that all observation will be reassigned to the cluster with the closest centroid. So that's the whole essence. Let me demonstrate my tool first, and then I'll have another video where I'll demonstrate how we can do K-means clustering using analytics solver. Let me open this is the tool, this is the file, Excel file. I posted this file in Blackboard, so you can, and I recommend you to experiment with this file, see how it works. So I will open it. So this is the start, K-means clustering. In order to start, you will click this button. Remember, this is a visual tool, so when we can just create cluster observations by clicking. So this is my canvas. I will create some observation, just wherever you want, point and click. So imagine that these are our observations. And whenever you are done, you can click enough. Then my tool will ask you, how many clusters do you want to have? I want to have 3 clusters. Click OK. So I'm about to start, and the start will be click next iteration. What happens when I will click? Remember, the first step is to assign all these observations to 3 randomly selected clusters. So how do we randomly select clusters? There are several ways of doing it. And one of the commonly used way is to just randomly generate cluster centroids. So in this case, I will randomly generate 3 centroids, which will be centroids or those random clusters. So let me click. So you can see that 3 random centroids were generated. This is 1, 2, and 3. And then all observations were reassigned to the closest centroid. So all these observations were assigned to this one. All these observations, the green ones, and these 2 are assigned to this centroid. And all these observations were assigned to this centroid. Now, when I will click next iteration, what happens is that centroids of these new clusters, so I have 1 cluster here, second clusters are all greens, and the third clusters are all squares. centroids of those clusters will be calculated and observation will be reassigned to the closest centroid. So centroid of this one will be somewhere approximately here. Centroid of green circles will be probably somewhere in here. And centroid of this will be somewhere in here. Let's see. So centroid is here. And these are all assigned to this centroid. All centroid of that green cluster was this point. And then centroid of this. We are not done yet. Now, next step, this process will repeat again. So centroid of all these clusters will be calculated. Centroid of all these clusters will become calculated, and all of this will be calculated. And observations will be assigned to those new centroids, the closest to the closest new centroid. So now this is centroid, and as you can see, we nicely isolated 3 clusters. Probably when I'll click next iteration, it will say that we're done. Yes, the clustering process has successfully converged. Okay. If you want to repeat, which means repeat this with the same data, you can just click new random initialization, which means everything will start from the beginning with the same clusters, but 3 random clusters will be generated differently. So let me start one more time. So now see the cluster, the random centroid was generated in here, another one in here, and another one in here. And observations were assigned to the closest centroid. So what will happen when I will click this? The centroid of this cluster, see all these squares are in one cluster. Centroid of them will be calculated, it will be somewhere in here. Centroid of these greens will be calculated somewhere, it will be somewhere in here, and centroid of this will be calculated somewhere in here. And then all clusters will be reassigned to the closest centroid. See, centroid is here. Now all these clusters are assigned to this centroid, all these clusters are assigned to this centroid, all these clusters are assigned to this centroid. So next step again, if I have next iteration, then the centroid of this cluster will be calculated. Probably it will be somewhere in here. These 2 probably are already found. And now we again nicely isolated the 3 clusters, which we usually see that there is 1 cluster in here, 2nd and 3rd, but software successfully isolated those clusters. So this is how my interactive tool works. So I created it with the hope that this will help to visualize the process of k-means clustering. How does it work? So this concludes my short video. Bye-bye.